Hi, welcome to the Fiat Ministry Show, episode 25, recorded August 18th, 2013, with our guest, Hannah Dalot. She will be talking about the Eucharist and also Saint Pedro Calungzo and also the Venerable Maria Therese Gonzalez Quivendo. Enjoy. Welcome to the Fiat Ministry Show, episode 25. Welcome. We're excited to have another show going on tonight. I have a great guest on tonight. We're going to be talking about the Eucharist, and we have other. Actually, we're going to also be talking about a couple saints in the spotlight of the saints. I want to let everybody know. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. Like us on our Facebook page. There's Fiat Ministry. You can't miss it. And I just want to let everybody know what's going on in some future shows. So I'm going to bring that up. Next week, we're going to have David Wang. He's from the band Critical Mass. Actually from Canada. So it's a great... you can go to criticalmassmusic.org to check them out, to listen to them, and then check out the show next week. Joe Miller will be coming up, the Unplugged, September 1st. On the 8th of September, my parish priest, it's going to be Father Sean Donnelly from Immaculate Conception Church in Madison, Ohio. And then also on the 15th of September, Sister Catherine Dias. She is from the Erie Diocese, and she runs the... I'm going to jump over back to me. And she's going to be talking about the chapel that's in the Mill Creek Mall, which is a really cool thing. And I just, can't wait to have that show going on. So let's bring over from St. Pete's in Rome, and I'm going to bring in tonight Hannah. Welcome. We're definitely doing this show a new way. We're in a sense side by side, but miles and millions of miles away otherwise, as our background shows. But welcome tonight, Hannah. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, thank you.
That's good. What we're going to be talking about the Eucharist, and I know that's one of the really, something that you're very passionate and feels comfortable talking about, and has a lot of grace that you get from talking about the Eucharist. And what are some things that you can help people to talk about the Eucharist? What are your backgrounds helping you feel faithful using the Eucharist as that, what in the catechism, using it the summit, the center of our faith? What would you tell other people about your little bit about what you deal with and enjoy about receiving the Eucharist, and what do you take away from even adorations and other things? So just give us a little bit of a insight of what you use as a foundation through the Eucharist.
Well, what I use as a foundation for the Eucharist is daily prayer and trying to go to daily Mass, or if I can't go to daily Mass, then I try to unite myself to the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, since I know what time that starts within the Mass. So when I look at my watch and I see the time of when the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass is being offered, then I unite myself to the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass if I can. And yeah, the Eucharist is truly the summit and source of our faith, and it contains so much strength and so much grace, and it helps me to be strong and it helps me to truly live out my Catholic faith with such grace and heroism and with courage and virtue. And without the Eucharist, I don't think I would be the person I am today, because 5 years in the past, I'm 19, so 5 years ago, I wouldn't have had the devotion to the Eucharist that I have now. Because when I became homeschooled in 7th grade, and when I became homeschooled, I started to have religion class and to read about the saints and to truly know and understand my faith as it truly is. And that's really when my faith in the Eucharist and my love for the Eucharist and devotion to the Eucharist and to the saints and Mary truly began for me. Excuse me. And I just started to just go to Mass daily to receive the Eucharist. I started to pray more and to have a great and deep love for my faith. And throughout the years, I've just received so much grace towards the Eucharist and from the Eucharist, and so much knowledge and understanding. 7 weeks ago, I was in the chapel praying, or I was at Mass actually, and as I was at Mass, I received a deeper understanding of the Eucharist, that because of the Eucharist, I'm adopted, so I'm not blood related to anybody in my family except one person, and that's my sister who I was adopted with. And when I was at Mass, I came to understand that I'm not only blood related to her biologically, but also through the Eucharist. So through the Eucharist, the Eucharist is really a universal sacrament because it's for everybody. So if I'm so when we receive the Eucharist, it's Christ's blood flowing through our veins, and because we're all the body of Christ in one flesh, and in Jesus Christ, and brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, then we are one in the Eucharist. So if Christ's blood is flowing through one person, it's also flowing through all of us. So I'm not only blood related to my sister biologically, but also with the blood of Christ.
Yeah.
So by being blood related to her sacramentally in that way, then I'm blood related through the Eucharist to everybody, because all of us are one in each other.
Right.
And when I receive the Eucharist, I have this great joy and deep love many times. And sometimes when I'm at Mass, sometimes I don't go to Mass with the same love and the same
right
and the respect that I should, because I just wasn't having a good day or morning, or I didn't prepare myself enough to receive the to receive the Eucharist and to go to Mass. But I would go to Mass anyway, knowing that it was the right thing to do. And throughout the Mass, I would just be praying for God's grace and asking His forgiveness, and for the grace to have such a great love and reverence now for the Eucharist, and to feel close to the Eucharist. So, many times it wouldn't be until the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, or when I'm going up to communion, that I would receive that grace, and it would be as if my heart and soul would be in an ecstasy, I guess. And because even though my body is here, I would feel like my soul was in heaven because of the great love that I would have, and the great. It's like many times I would be looking at the priest, and that's all I would see, and it's like everybody else goes away, and all I see is the priest.
Right.
Because my heart and soul are so fixed on the Mass and the Eucharist. And some days ago, I was also at Mass, and I received another grace that when we receive the Eucharist, we're not only receiving Jesus and His heart in the Eucharist, but because we're all one in each other, we are in one in Christ, and we make up the body of Christ and the heart of Christ. We not only receive Christ's heart in the Eucharist, but each other's hearts, and receive each other. So, to me, that's a call that we should have a greater love for each other at that moment, and we should And I'm really happy that we do the handshake of peace before we receive the Eucharist, because, like I said, we're not only receiving Jesus into our hearts, but we're receiving each other as well.
Yeah.
So we are, like, at the handshake of peace, it's like we're saying, I forgive you and I love you, and that makes us even more ready to receive Jesus and to receive each other into our hearts.
Sure. No, and I think that's what it is. It's a receiving, and I like how you're saying togetherness. And the other thing, how God and everything that happened through the Bible, how Jesus was the sacrificial lamb before it was uh, with Moses and putting the blood, the lamb blood, on the door. There's so much similarities with the Old Testament and the New Testament, and I love just sharing that what you're sharing is oneness. The body is together. There's a lot of parts of the body, but there's one full body, and through that is Jesus. And I love how you're expressing that through the Eucharist and using that as your excitement to receive every week or daily if you go daily, or even going through perpetual adoration is just a great way, and we need to even for myself needs to think about that when we're walking up, looking maybe at the cross while we go up to receive. In the, like we were talking about, you were mentioning the source and summit of our faith. In the Catechism, it's paragraph 1322, where it starts with talking about the Eucharist and the source and summit. So if anyone has their catechism, to check that out. It's powerful to really know your what we're receiving. I know at your family parish, you had someone that was a great, and I have his CD. You have, and it's. I just gave it away. She's right next to me, but we're trying this different. Vinny Flynn has the 7 Secrets of the Eucharist. And what can you say, or what did you take about? Because I know you read the book. I have the CD. Driving from work home, that helps, an hour drive. But what did you take from the book, and what kind of things that you could maybe highlight for people about the Eucharist with the 7 Secrets of the Eucharist?
Well, I was really excited when I started to read the book because of my devotion to the Eucharist and love for the Eucharist, and I learned so much. And one of the things that I came to deeply understand about the Mass and the Eucharist is that since the Eucharist is universal sacrament, and since we are receiving Christ, and since we are in Christ, then we're not only receiving the Christ, but we are receiving all of heaven into our hearts and souls. And we're not only looking at Jesus. Jesus isn't only looking at us when we're in the Eucharist, when we're at Mass, but we're looking at Him. So we can have such one-on-one time with the Lord in our hearts, and we're not only receiving Jesus into our hearts, but the Holy Trinity, because 3 persons in one God.
Right.
And what really struck me was when I was reading the Vinnie Flynn book.
Yeah.
Is when it said that when we're at Mass, we are at the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass. We're at Calvary with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
But throughout the Mass, we're also not just at Mass, but we're in all of heaven, because it's like heaven and earth meet each other at Mass. And all of heaven is there, and there are so many. It bothers me so much that of knowing that when people go to Mass, there are so many people talking or playing with their phones or their iPods and games, and they don't realize and they don't know or understand that they're in the presence of heaven, they're in the presence of God. And if Jesus was there, literally like that, if we could see him with our bodily eyes, then we wouldn't be doing that. We would be having such great love for him because he would be there. And really, he is there, but we just can't see him. And so is Mary and the angels and the saints and everybody in heaven. So it helps. So it helps me to pray more because of how much we walk by faith and not by sight.
Right.
And what helps me so much is have a great devotion to the Eucharist is my devotion to Mary, because when I began to have a devotion to Mary when I was 14 or 13, that's really what changed everything, because she is the one, and also my angel, who brought me to the Eucharist, because that's what Mary does. She doesn't bring doesn't bring us to herself, but to her Son and to her heart. So she brought me to the Eucharist and to have a greater devotion to the Eucharist. And to me, that's a huge part of my life and a huge part of really understanding the Eucharist, because the graces that we receive come from Jesus, but through Mary and her heart. And when I was reading the Benny Flynn book, I had an even more desire to go to adoration. At my church, we don't have 24/7 adoration. We have it every first Friday.
Okay.
But every day I just try to go to my little chapel and have personal adoration, because even though he's not present on the altar, he's there in the tabernacle.
Sure.
So, and it hurts me that so many people do not go and pray in the chapel, because 24/7 he is longing for our hearts. He is longing for us and thirsting for our love. And he wants us to comfort his heart and to console his heart, and what better way to do that than to pray and to just speak to him of everything that's going on in our hearts, because he wants us to have a relationship with him. He wants us to always be ready to talk to us in our hearts.
Sure.
To him. And some weeks ago, when I was at Mass on Saturday, or sometime in morning Mass, I was praying and listening to the Mass, and I received another grace about the Eucharist, that because we are all one in the body of Christ, and because we are brothers and sisters in Christ, and we make up the body and heart of Christ, that we are called, whenever we receive the Eucharist, we are called to an even greater and higher love than we have now, that we are called to not love as the world loves and as a human being loves, but as God loves, and to love with the heart of Christ and to his mother's heart. And what better way to have that love and to have the virtue of charity unless through prayer and sacrifice and penance, because the greatest charity that we could ever have is prayer and forgiving each other and mercy and just loving each other through the Eucharist.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you a break and to take a breath, because that was a lot, and we're going to take a quick break. But really quickly, and I just want to let everybody know to check out, definitely check out, if you ever want to email Hannah, it's hannah@fiatministry.org. It's been up on the screen, but just if you have any questions or comments. And I just want to, one thing again, like what Hannah was saying about just receiving him, and people, especially like my pastor's been saying, I mean, not even $1 million. I mean, people are excited about winning $1 million, and people are not like what Hannah was saying, playing with their phones or doing something beforehand at Mass and not preparing. that what you're going to receive with the Eucharist is so much more in rewards than $1,000,000 you'll ever get, because you're never going to see that $1,000,000 when you die. And what my pastor always says, think about that. So like one thing about Jesus and God, he gave us stuff that we can sense, taste, feel, touch, and receiving not just bread like what a monkey or any animal would be eating. We're receiving, and we know with our knowledge and our faith and our belief, we're receiving Jesus, not just bread, not just wine. It's the precious blood and body of Jesus Christ. So I hopefully, just let everybody know that. And I know people know that, but just, remembrance and take that every time you receive and think about it. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get right back to you. And I know Hannah, we'll bring Hannah back on. And I know one person that you really love and dear, and we'll just talk a little bit about him and the Eucharist, is Pope Francis. Just the passion, and we have an image of him with the Eucharist, and it's just really great. So right after, we'll be talking more, continue talking to Hannah about the Eucharist, and also with Pope talking about Pope Francis. So stay tuned. Hi, it's Ken from the Fiat Ministry. I want to let everybody know about Mystic Monk Coffee, the monks of Wyoming. They have great coffee and teas on their website. Go to fiatministry.org and click on their logo, and you can go directly to their website and get some great coffees and teas and help out their monastery and also help out the Fiat Ministry. So enjoy a cup of coffee, and let's get back to the show. Yeah, we're back again. Just make sure you go to the website. The icon is there for Mystic Monk Coffee. Enjoy some coffee. Help out the Fiat Ministry just a little bit. And thank you very much for your support of the Fiat Ministry and Mystic Monk Coffee. We're going to get back with Hannah, and we're, like I said earlier, we're going to be ending with talking about the Eucharist with knowledge of one of the most faithful person, the most faithful person right now, and is Pope. Let me do that one more time, Hannah. We're going to be talking about Pope Francis with the Eucharist. Hannah, I'm going to send you over an image to look at. And what can you say, just looking at the image and what you've known, or just your personal thoughts about Pope Francis and him with the Eucharist, and what he, entails and shows example-wise with the Eucharist?
Well, the two things that you can see on his face in this awesome picture is joy and love, and that truly comes from the Eucharist, because within the Eucharist is every single grace that you can possibly imagine, and two of the most beautiful graces that we can have to rise to the heights of sanctity is joy and love. And the saint once said that a saint who is not joyful is no saint at all. Or a sad saint is no saint at all. Okay. Because a saint should have a lot of joy and a lot of love, and joy comes from love, and you can see it on Pope Francis's face. And the beautiful thing is that he doesn't hide it, and he doesn't try to put it aside. He just shows everybody what's in his heart. And one of the things that I love about Pope Francis is that, as busy as he is, and he's the most busiest guy in the world because he's the Pope.
Yeah.
And
He is busy. That I can't imagine his schedule.
But as busy as he is, he always has time to pray. He always has time to spend
Yeah.
to give himself to Jesus in prayer by spending time with him in front of the tabernacle and in front of the in adoration, and he always has time to pray, to have devotion to the Eucharist, to give himself to Jesus in the Eucharist. And to me that makes me think, because even though we're not the Pope and we still have busy lives, we don't even take 1 minute to spend time with Jesus in prayer, or to just say a little thank you to Jesus for what he's done, or to acknowledge his love and his graces that he's given us. And yet you see Pope Francis, and he's so busy, and he always takes time to pray, to make God first in his life. And he encourages me so much also to go to daily mass, and to go to personal adoration daily if I can. And so many times when I go to adoration, even though I might go there with a bad attitude and not having that
Same
love
here.
again,
I've been. Go ahead.
I still go to adoration despite that, because I know that I need to, and I know that if I have faith, and if I truly open myself up to Jesus and ask for his forgiveness and mercy, that he will indeed forgive me and have mercy on me and pour so many graces into my heart and soul. And many times I would go to adoration with a bad attitude, or just angry, and I would go there, and I would, by the grace of God, be able to open up my heart to him and to ask for his forgiveness. And even if I go there, even if I'm in the chapel praying or reading my Bible or a saint's book, or listening to sacred music, even if I'm there for 10 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, many times I walk away from when my time in the chapel is over, and I come out of the chapel, and it's as if everything that I had before in my heart before I went to the chapel, everything is gone, and everything comes out of me, and my heart has such a great love for God, and it's as if, even though I'm here, it's as if I'm in heaven because of my great love for God, and I feel surrounded by the angels and the saints, and it's as if I just went to confession, even though all I did was pray and listen to music. But the thing is that I allowed Jesus to love me, and I allowed him to just talk to me in my heart. And many times when I'm at Mass, I pray that I may have the grace out of God's mercy to feel the presence of the angels and saints, and of Mary and him at Mass, and of my angel. And many times my prayer is answered, but many times my prayer is answered either when the holy sacrifice of the Mass is happening, or when I'm actually going up to receive the Eucharist. And I was wondering, like, why is it that it's at the holy sacrifice of the Mass, and when I'm going up to Holy Communion, that I truly feel the presence of heaven with me. And I start to shake a bit and start to wobble down the aisle, and just because of knowing that I'm in the presence of heaven and of God and Mary and the angels and the saints. And I realized that it is so important for me to feel the presence of heaven as I'm going up to receive the Eucharist, because it helps me understand and know that they are there for me, and that they are with me, and that they are there to help me. And what better point in the day for me to feel their presence than at Mass, as I'm receiving Jesus into my heart and soul. And I remember one day I was at Mass, and at my Saturday Mass, and Mass was going longer than it usually did. So I was going up to receive the Eucharist, and right when I was receiving the Eucharist, the bells for the Angelus prayer began to ring, and the Angelus is when Mary became the mother of God, when
Mm.
the angel Gabriel came to her and she said yes, and Jesus entered into her womb, and he became present within her and within the world.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought to myself,
That's
like, I received the Eucharist the same time as Mary said yes to Jesus. Not at the same time that Jesus entered into Mary, I'm receiving the Jesus is coming within me as well.
that's awesome. And this is with the Fiat saying yes. Um, just saying yes to Jesus, and you said Jesus the most perfect way. Uh, and I think the stories that you're showing were just great, and I appreciate everything that you gave tonight um, with the Eucharist, Hannah. Um, we're gonna jump over to the spotlight of the saints as simply as we will get spotlight of the saints up as soon as I can figure it out. We'll jump over to spotlight of the saints right now, and we were just talking about the Eucharist, and Hannah, thank you very much for talking about the Eucharist. And you gave me some great saints. Great saints. Ones that I had to look up, definitely had to do research. And I know there's two of them, but could you give, because it's a little inside joke, but could you give out what's the first saint you're going to be talking about tonight?
The first saint I'm going to be talking about is Saint Pedro Calungsod, who was he was from the Philippines, and he was actually canonized last year, but when I didn't know about him until last year when I was watching the canonization of Saint Catherine's, because I was watching her canonization, which was an answer to prayer because she's one of my favorite saints, and I prayed that I would be alive that for her canonization, and I was last year. And when I was watching it, um, I saw that there was another saint, Saint Pedro Calungsod, also being canonized. And they were talking about him, and I was just blown away by his story. He was an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old missionary, and he he was, when he was a young adult, when he was 13 or 14, he he became a missionary with one of his priests, and he went to this country called, um, called, I forget what it's called, but he went to a country to spread the gospel and to be a missionary, and he was so devout and so full of God's love that even though he was 14 or 15, he had such great love for God, and he was so poor in spirit that he was able to to leave everything, even his family, his friends, his everything that was familiar to him, and to go into a foreign country with other missionaries to preach the gospel, not knowing what was to come, not knowing what would happen, not knowing, maybe not even knowing their language. And yet he was there for 4 years until he was 18 and until he was martyred. Um, his martyrdom happened because since the people there didn't believe, some of them became baptized, and then there's this guy in the country that they were being missionaries in, spreading rumors around that the babies that they baptized died, and that it was because of them that they died because they baptized them, and that wasn't true. So the guy who was spreading the rumors began to have a great hatred for Saint Pedro Calungsod and the priest he was with and the other missionaries. So he he went to this other he went to this other guy he knew that was not a Christian and that did not like Catholics. And he tried to persuade him to get an army and to kill Pedro Calungsod and his priest friend, who was also a missionary. And at first, the guy he was talking to wasn't wasn't agreeing, but then uh, the man who was spreading rumors around called him a coward, and then he agreed to kill them. So when the man who was spreading rumors, when he was away, uh, Pedro Calungsod went to his wife, who had a baby girl, and she was a Christian. So even though the man who was spreading rumors didn't agree with his daughter being baptized, the mother, who was a Christian, agreed for her baby to be baptized. So while he was gone, uh, she she baptized the baby. The baby was baptized, and when the man who was spreading rumors, her husband, came back and found out about this, she became really angry and began to hate the missionaries even more. So he, one day, as Pedro Calungsod teaching teaching to the children, he and a bunch of other of the guy's tribe came to Pedro Calungsod and his priest friend, who was also a missionary, and they tried to kill them by throwing arrows at them. But Pedro, even though he could have run, he could have escaped from their attempts to kill him, he didn't leave because he wanted to protect the priest. And to me, that reminds me of Saint John, the beloved disciple,
Hmm.
because of when Jesus was on the cross, he could have left Jesus and he could have been like all the other disciples and ran away. But because of his love for his priest and his love for God, because of his love for Jesus and his faith in Jesus, he didn't leave Jesus on the cross, and he didn't abandon Christ as he was suffering. And Saint Pedro Calungsod, even though he could have left the priest behind and his enemies to kill the priest, he instead defended him, and and because he defended his priest friend, he ended up being killed uh, by an arrow being shot into his chest, and then he wasn't dead at that point, but that his enemy took him out by um, uh, wounds to the head. And right before he died, the priest who was trying to defend from death gave him absolution, and then Pedro Calungsod died. And after he died, his enemies also killed the priest.
Hmm.
And when I was watching the canonization of the Mass last year for St. Pedro Calungsod, I was trying to figure out why we didn't have any relics of him. And it turns out that it's because after the enemies killed St. Pedro Calungsod and his priest, who is now a blessed, um, they his enemies went to his enemies tied up the two bodies and placed a heavy rock around their feet, and then they just threw them into the waters and let the bodies go down to the depths of the sea. So that's why we don't have any relics of Saint Pedro
Huh.
Calungsod. And so to me, he says an awesome saint because of his faith and his chastity. Because while he was in the country that he was a missionary, and there were many male prostitutes, and they were trying to get him to commit the same sins. But because of his love for God and his chastity and purity and his faith, he never committed a sin. He was always chaste, he was always pure. And he and to me that's because he had daily communion. He went to confession before he went to go preach to the people he was preaching to and spreading the gospel to, because he didn't know whether he was going to die that day. He didn't know what was going to happen. So he was always preparing himself with prayer and devotion to Mary and chastity and confession and daily communion. So the fact that he was that young and is
Yeah.
able to do so much, and then I see so many other 18-year-olds these days and the things
Right.
that they do. And to
Mhm.
me, he's a model for our youth today, because
Sure.
if he can do that, then we can do that too.
Mhm. No, that's yeah, and I like how you picked the saints that are kind of, in a sense, um, the second saint is definitely relevant, and in the time of, we can look at and become saints. Think about that and not be, you know, they're so, it's so long ago that, okay, those, people aren't us anymore, but they can be, and we can become, and like you're saying, like 18, the youth, you guys have it, just, a couple weeks ago with the World Youth Day, and 3 million people on the beach celebrating Mass, and a ton of just youth, just so on fire. From very young to the 18-year-olds to, the 30s and onwards, but they were all together and they were all excited about their faith, and it's so nice to see, and yeah, it's a great person to, just, um eh, you know Pedro is just someone that we can look at as, okay, we can do it. I mean, there's no age range that it tells us we can't do what God is willing us to do and asks us to do. So, great saint. I appreciate all of. Um, I Let's at least give you an idea what he looks like, because I was dropping the ball there. Let's and let me get over to myself. Okay. Do I have him? I thought I had him, but let me. You gave it to me. I'm dropping the ball, Hannah. But we have the next saint. I will put that up. Definitely to um in the show notes, and also put it in our talk when it's archived. But our second saint, the Venerable Maria Teresa Gonzalez e- Evendo. I hopefully even close, but let's. I I mean Maria. I look at that, and it's my second, my 9-month old, and that's all Matt. And but can you just give a little bit of backside of her, and what's her just sainthood became her way to sainthood?
Yeah. Um, her what strikes me the most is that she always what kept her going and persevering, and what helped her truly become a saint is her devotion to Mary. And she was so faithful to Mary and so devoted to Mary for her actions and her her love for others. And
Mm,
she was born in Spain in 1930 and died in 1950 at the age of 19, 4 days before her birthday, the 20th birthday. And when she was growing up, she would have little fits, and she would have she would be really self-willed, and she had a very hard time controlling herself because of how self-willed she was. Even though she was a very um, energetic and happy child, she could be very self-willed at times. And but it wasn't until the day that she received Holy Communion, at the age of 5 or 6 or 7, that it's when she received the Eucharist that everything just immediately changed in her, and she became a new person. And her self, her self-willed attitude and personality vanished, and she became to overcome herself more and more. And her devotion to Mary, she consecrated herself to Mary some years later when she was 11 or 15. And her, her motto was, um, her motto was, may people see me, may people see you when they see me. And to me, that helps me so much because as children of, because of how much we are God's children, but we are also Mary's children. And whenever, whenever people see us, they mustn't see us, they must see Mary and Jesus. So the fact that they must see Mary and Jesus, not ourselves, um, is really a calling to have great self-denial and to have a lot of strength and to pray all the time because of how much we are become so sinful and we can forget about Jesus and Mary so much. And it's when we forget about them that people see who we are
Hmm.
and not how they are because they are holy and they are good and obedient. And when she was, I think, 17 or 18, entered the she entered a religious order of she entered the Carmelites of Charity, and it was in that she had such great charity for people and such great love, and she showed her love for Mary by serving others and always doing everything that she could done and by obeying the rule for that order. And she would be so devout in prayer. And one day she was praying in the chapel, and one of the sisters came and prayed by her side for 10 minutes. She was praying the Rosary by Venerable Teresa's side, and after that, another sister came to to Venerable Teresa, and asked her who the sister was who was praying by her side. And Teresa said, I don't know who that was, and I don't remember anybody praying by my side. And and many times you would, because if they could either hear them walking towards you or something that you know that somebody is right there. And the fact that she was so absorbed in prayer and in Mary and in the love of God that nothing else distracted her. And all that mattered to her was love and Mary and God and prayer. And one day she predicted, actually, one of the things that I love about her too is that she focused, like Saint Therese of the Little Flowers, she
Hmm.
focused so much on the little things in life more than the big things. And it's in the little things that she had such great courage because because it's the little things. So many people look at the big things in life, not the little things, when
Mm-hmm.
it's the little things that turn into those big things that we worry so
Right.
much about. And it's by it's by her focusing on the little things in life that she was able to overcome the big obstacles that she had and temptations. And so she was able, the more she focused on the little things, the more she was able to overcome so many other temptations and sins, and um, including her, when she was 18, she suffered or maybe when she was 17, she became ill with tuberculosis, meningitis, and she had to suffer so much, and she she didn't complain, but she just accepted it as God's will, and she embraced it for the love of God,
Hmm.
and she offered it up to God as a sacrifice. And she ended up having, during her illness, she ended up having, I think, 67, 68, or 64 spinal taps.
Hmm.
So it's when they do something to your spine to release the fluid out of it,
Hmm.
and that usually causes a lot of pain, and sometimes you're unconscious and you can't move. And she had to endure that 67 times, I think,
Hmm.
that great pain. And many times for a normal person, it would be very difficult to endure all of that, but it's through her devotion to Mary and her prayer life and her love for God and her faith that she was able to endure so much suffering and so much pain for the love of Mary. And sometime, some months before she died, I think, she actually predicted her death. And she said to her sisters that since it was getting close to the day that she was going in 1950, the Pope was going uh, to make official the dogma of the Immaculate Conception with the
Hmm.
Assumption. And she was talking to her sisters one day, and she was talking to them about her death, and she told them that she felt that she was going to receive a special grace to be with Mary in heaven when that dogma is proclaimed official by the Church,
Hmm.
dogma of Mary's Assumption. And she would say how beautiful that would be to be in heaven when that is proclaimed official.
Hmm.
And her sisters didn't believe her, and they didn't believe that she was going to die on that day or before that day. But it turned out that I think some days before the Pope proclaimed the dogma of Mary's Assumption, she
Hmm.
did die on that day. She did die some days before, so her prediction came true.
Hmm.
And and even though she was a nun and she was a novice at that time, um, she was allowed to make her final vows as a nun, so she could wear the full habit. And so at her death, she was dressed in the full habit and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, can you imagine what?
That
Like, she was always in heaven. Yeah.
that is really cool. Jump over to me. I lost Hannah. For I don't know if it's on my side or but Gabby, I do know that the great grandmother uh, or our great grandmother was Maria too. That was part of the reasoning for the name of my daughter. And and Jay, does Hannah, as a young person, find it's especially helpful to learn about the saints? And I think hopefully we can get back to a question. Oh, and I dropped a call. Hopefully Hannah can come back to us for the end of the show. I'm gonna play this, and then hopefully Hannah will be back by the time.
The person whom you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Please leave a message after the beep. The person whom you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Please leave a message after the beep.
There she is. Yeah. There's always fun parts of the show, but I think overall, it, Hannah, I know you're going back to college, so is there anything that is going on with you just to close up the evening? Um, you're going to classes. I know you were looking at doing, being with some sisters up in Michigan. Is there any updates on that, or are you going back for another retreat or anything like that?
Yes, I am planning on going this November,
Okay,
and I'm really excited because I've been going since I was 15 and I'm 19. So for 4 years now, and just every single year, God tells me to, like, my whole year for 4 years has been everything that I do within those 4 years is really because I go to the Dominican Sisters retreats. Like one year, uh, the first year I went, I knew it, like I felt like I belonged there and I wanted to enter. So I went the second year and it wasn't time yet. So I got a job. And then the next year, I still wasn't ready and and I helped teach BSR. And then this year I'm going to go again. One of the last year I went, and she told me a second time to go to college. So now I'm in college, and I finished my first semester by the grace of God, and I survived. And I in my first semester I got an A and a B in my two classes I was taking, and now I'm going to be starting my second semester in about 2 weeks, and we'll see how that goes.
that's very exciting. Good luck.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
always fun. It's always stressful, but good luck and everything, especially with everything going up with, the retreat coming up and um, because I've never been to Michigan or any, but I've seen. I know the sisters were, a little side note, they were on, Oprah even was blown away by the sister, and that's pretty impressive. So, um, and I know I really appreciate you coming on the show. And really quick on in the chat, Gabby mentioned that our Gabby and my great grandmother was also named Maria. And yes, I did know that. She was wondering, and it was part of the, I knew that with talking to, that was a beautiful name. That's one of our, the names that, picking up for our daughter, and we're really happy on the name, and so many beautiful saints that were Maria. It's just a beautiful uh, uh, name, and you got a lot of backing on Saints. You got the Saints, many Marias and Teresas and and all, just a beautiful. The ultimate one is Mary. But again, Hannah, good luck on college. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I apologize if it was on my end and any kind of technical problems, but that's part of this fun technology. But hopefully we talked about the Eucharist and two beautiful saints, and I hopefully people can take something out of it and talk to people. Have a great week. And I'm gonna just jump. Again, thank you, Hannah. I'll do that right now.
You're
Have a
welcome.
great
Thank you.
night. I will get you back on, and here is the email address if anyone wants to contact her through the Fiat Ministry. It's Hannah at fiatministry.org. And if you have any questions, comments, please email her. It will go to her, and she will hopefully write back to you as soon as possible. And Jay, thank you. Wishing us both a great show, and we appreciate it. Uh, it's fun to do, so I enjoy them, and hopefully Hannah, as a person that a guest that does not back down, so I appreciate that. So I am going to jump over to myself for the end of the show and let everybody know. Uh, Next week, we will have David Wang. He is the lead singer in Critical Mass, the band. It's a Christian rock group. Great. If you go to the recorded uh, stream, you'll hear him throughout the day. Definitely check out the recorded stream. There's always stuff going on. If you see a show that you like on the recorded stream, and I know it's not, we don't have TiVo, you can't go through the commercials, go to the archived page and everything's there. So anything that is on other than the music is on the archived. All the shows are archived. So other than that, again, I have to always thank my wife. Thank you for letting me do this for a little bit over an hour. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, Gabby and Jay in the chat, and anyone else that is watching this recorded. Thank you very much, and tune in next weekend, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. for the Fiat Ministry podcast. And next weekend will be David Wang of the Critical Mass band, and they're actually from Canada. So we're gonna try the country connection through Skype. So other than that, everybody have a great evening and a great week, and God bless. And thank you for watching the Fiat Ministry podcast broadcast. And I will let you go. God bless and have a good night.